Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad. Tehami. Pakistan's stock exchange rallied today as the benchmark KSE 100 index gained 743.27 points, and there was an appreciation in the value of the rupee also against the greenback, which was of 2.82 rupees, and this is the appreciation for the second consecutive day in the interbank market. We'll try to understand the core reasons associated with the PSX rally as well as the appreciation of the rupee's value against the greenback. And meanwhile, the Finance Minister Saqib has also said the matters regarding the completion of the 9th review of the $7 billion IMF loan program for Pakistan, as the IMF delegation is here in talks with the government authorities, were expected to be settled today. At the same time, Minister of State for Finance Aisha Ghaus Pasha has also said that memorandum of economic and fiscal policies between the government and the IMF delegation was very close to finalization. As per the statement of the Finance Ministry, there is a broad consensus on the reform actions and measures. Previously, we saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif saying that the IMF delegation here in Pakistan, in talks with the government authorities, was giving a very tough time to Finance Minister and his team. In a major development a couple of days before, the Human Rights Watch has urged the IMF to give Pakistan flexibility and time to achieve a sustainable, inclusive and rights-based recovery. We'll be looking to all these aspects. For that, we will go into the discussion with our panelists. On Skype, we are being joined by Mr. Shikoh. Atif is a senior economist and author of Managing the Unthinkable, had been associated with the York University, Canada as Professor of Economics. Mr. Atif, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Let's start particularly with this particular appreciation of rupee's value against the greenback. It is the second consecutive day. What core reason do you associate with this particular appreciation of the value? Is it because of that very sentiment that is in the market, that there is going to be a revival between IMF, of that particular program between IMF delegation and Pakistani authorities?
Certainly. Just as you said so eloquently in your introduction, it is economic sentiment is at the core of the appreciation. Also, a lot of our value of the Pakistani rupee was under threat from speculators. So now that things have settled down and the negotiations with IMF are wrapping up, the speculators see that their stance in the market is going to lead to tremendous losses. So they have backed down and the rupee is moving towards its true value. Another thing is the business sentiment, which is certainly picked up, as you mentioned, after the IMF negotiations are winding up now.
Right. So when we talk about this adjustment of the Pakistani rupee against the greenback, what sort of an impact did it have on this particular alignment after that particular unannounced cap was removed?
Well, after the removal of the cap, like for example, today the Asian Development Bank offered to invest a substantial amount of investment in our ML1 project. So IMF, which is considered the barometer of the economies of the world now, once that gives its thumbs up, China will be more willing to invest. Saudi would be willing to lend us and allow us to roll over the money. Asian Development Bank just today has agreed to invest. So with all this inflow of the dollar, with this green light, the value of the rupee is going to come closely towards its real value.
Right. So what is the expected real value? There are some analysts who are saying that it is going to stabilize around 260 after particularly this particular deal with the IMF is going to be revived. Is that so?
So there are a couple of other things that are going in the sort of in the background. Uh, One of them is the outflow of the US dollar to on our Afghan borders. So that is the Financial Times in the UK recently did a story on this as well, of how much of our US dollar is being smuggled out of Afghanistan. So the real value of the Pakistani rupee is as things normalize, is, as you said, is around 260, but my estimation is for 245 to 250.
Right. I'll come back to you, Mr. Shikoh Atif. We are joined by another participant in the show, Professor Dr. Usman Mustafa. Is former Joint Director, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Professor Mustafa, thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. So, Rupee has appreciated for the second consecutive day against the greenback. What reasons do you think are associated with that?
Can you repeat?
The value of rupee has appreciated
exactly,
against the greenback. It's 2.82. That is for the second consecutive day. So we see
actually that's the dollar and rupee's value is on these expectations, speculations,
right.
And also the going on the trend also. And the people, particularly they are very smart. They are knowing what's going on. As you know, we are almost in the near the. And there is agreement with the IMF is almost true, and all those conditions we are already fulfilling that. So there will be definitely a flow of the money, and particularly the dollars, not only from IMF. There are other institutions like other countries also, bilateral and multilateral countries. They are also offering us. But their condition was you must before giving us some dollars are in the form of loan. Of course, their condition is you must fulfill before IMF. IMF agreement should be there. Otherwise, there is some conditionality. So now we have already these things are on the pipeline. So definitely, as I was listening, the gentleman before, he was expecting that it will be further depreciated and might be 250 or around that.
So what's your understanding? What's the real value of the rupee after, particularly when you talk about the IMF program?
Yeah,
that
actually,
is
real value,
definitely
the real value depend upon the number of factors. One of them, how much reserve you have, how much stock you have, how much government plus public money in the form of dollar you have, and furthermore also there are other factors which also determine some of the economics conditions of the country also, and also the commitment made by different agencies. And there is another important variable which is also important, how much we have to pay back our loan. See, is that the due? We have a certain amount we have to pay, so we need also dollar. So if most of the people they knows that we have to pay back the loan, so definitely there will be a shortage. So with that expectation, the value of the rupees will further decrease. But I am sure now the things are getting better, and not only we have inflow, but also the expectation of the people within 2 days, and I am sure within the next few days it will further depreciate.
Right, Mr. Shikoh Atif, what sort of an impact do you think it would have on the exports and the related proceeds as well as the remittances?
So, the one thing that has happened as a result of the IMF, now our rupee is market based, and we are not trying to peg it. That was one of their conditionalities. So that has allowed for the export holdbacks and the remittances to get back online very effectively. So our finance minister has done a pretty good job of acting on that. So it is all looking great. And the one good thing with depreciation of the rupee, so everyone is sort of quibbling that it causes inflation, and in many ways it does. But what it does is, the weaker our currency, the less expensive it is for other countries to buy stuff from Pakistan. So it is cheaper. So the devaluation in our rupee is actually great for the exports. So things are cheaper for other countries to buy. Pakistani things are cheaper for other countries to buy. So in the longer term, I hope for this to have a very positive impact on the Pakistani economy.
So you see the exports increasing from Pakistan in the coming days?
In the medium to long term, I certainly do. The only thing is some of our exports, they have an import component. So before we can export something, we need to buy the raw materials from abroad. Unfortunately, those raw materials have become a little more expensive because of our currency's devaluation. But as we move forward, as we go into substitute our exports into those areas, like IT exports, which do not require an import component, it certainly bodes really well for the Pakistan economy.
Right, Mr. Shikoh, what sort of a significant impact did this removal of the price cap regarding the exchange rate had during the negotiations between the IMF delegation and the Pakistani authorities? As Finance Minister has said that the matters regarding the finalization and the completion of the 9th review are expected to be settled today.
So certainly. So since you're asking me, very kindly allow me to say one quick thing. And lots of people have been vilifying and looking at it as if they're some sort of villains at IMF. On behalf of our nation, allow me to say thank you so very much. Us being upset with IMF and them enforcing some conditions on us is a little bit like someone who needs help with his good health being upset with the doctor. So allow me to say thank you so much for the IMF, which came to Pakistan as a personal request by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Now, the Finance Minister met today privately at the PM house with the head of the IMF. Because of media scrutiny, they couldn't find the privacy, so they met one-on-one. So this has been really the one great thing with all of this IMF visit has been that our government has been really hands-on with how they have handled all of the requirements, all of the conditionalities that the IMF has put upon us. So I look at it as really a blessing, because the Pakistani public is smart enough to know that no one political party or no one leader is doing this on purpose. All the things that we are doing as a nation are, first of all, they are necessary for our nation to survive and thrive. Number one. Number two, this is all enforced upon us, not enforced, but even suggested to us, just like a doctor would suggest, you take this medicine and you will be well. And the IMF is that doctor. Doesn't matter which political party or which person or which individual is in charge. So all of these things are necessary. Coming back to what you said, the market-based fluctuation of the rupee. First of all, let me say, the dollar becoming expensive is not only a rupee story. Dollar has become expensive as it contrasts with all currencies of the world. It has increased in value compared with the British pound, Japanese yen, euro, you name it. So it's not only the Pakistani rupee that the dollar has actually increased in value, and we look like everyone in Pakistan, to my mind, as a mistake, uses the Pakistani rupee as, well, the dollar has become this expensive, we must be doing something wrong. No, the dollar story is a US dollar story. It's not a Pakistani rupee story, except for these two things: speculation in the market and Afghan smuggling on the Afghan border.
Afghan smuggling. Mr. Shikoh, Atif, I'll come to this point. I just want you to shed a little bit of more light regarding this particular aspect of the smuggling of this huge amount of dollars towards Afghanistan. And there are certain developments, very interesting developments associated with that also. Professor Mustafa, what sort of an impact do you think it's going to have in the coming days when we specifically talk about exports and the inflow of the remittances?
Particularly, this our remittance will be definitely, the flow will be started because our the ex-Pakistanis, they were a little bit doubt about the value, and there is a gap between, if you see, there is a big gap between the official and unofficial black market dollars. So definitely they don't want to send it through proper channels. So they are waiting because there is speculation it's increasing and increasing. So under that scenario, definitely no one will like to spend his dollars. He want to keep that, or he want to say I like to get more and more. So that's one thing will be stopped, because no, it's already sure there is a flow of the money. When there is a flow of supply is enough, definitely there will be, the demand will be automatically curtailed. So the value will be sustained at a certain level. I think they're expecting the 250 or around that. There will be it's a flow. It's an open market, and it is a open values. It's not a curtail, or there is no government control or something like that. So definitely the confidence of the both is up, and it's more, and they are sure that their actual dollar will get the same value,
right.
And they will send it through proper channel also.
Right, we are honored to have been joined by another participant on the phone line. Mr. Ammar Habib is a senior economist. Mr. Ammar Habib, thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. We see the Pakistan Stock Exchange rallied today, 743.27 points, the KSE benchmark 100 index, and then appreciation of 2.82 rupees value against the greenback. What core reasons do you associate with it? And when we specifically talk about the rupees value, do you think after the revival of the IMF program, it is going to increase further against the greenback?
Yep, that is correct. After we moved towards a floating exchange rate, we were maintaining a fixed exchange rate for the longest time, for the last 6 months, and then we started depreciating it, and then we're at this stage. Now that we have depreciated, the rupee is in line with its actual market value, so more dollar and remittances flows are coming in, which is increasing the supply of the dollar against the rupee. This is why the rupee is appreciating. Once the IMF program goes through, we will see more appreciation of the rupee against the dollar.
So what sort of an impact is going to have on remittances and exports in the coming days?
We will see a lot more remittances and exports during the next few months, mainly because a lot of remittances and export proceeds were not brought back to Pakistan because the rupee value was overvalued against the dollar. But now that it's more close to a fundamental market rate, we will see a lot more export and remittance proceeds coming through.
So how significant a role do you think the removal of the price cap played during the negotiations between IMF delegation and the government authorities?
This was one of the moot points without which IMF would have never concurred to a program. Once they moved towards a floating rate, the program moved forward. Without this, there would have been no program.
Okay, Mr. Ammar, when we talk, there is a very important point that was highlighted by Mr. Shikoh Atif. How detrimental do you think the transfer of a huge quantity of dollars, like around $5 million every day into Afghanistan, played in this particular depreciation of the value of rupee?
This also played a significant role, as we need to understand that we're not just importing food or supplies for one country, we're actually doing it for two countries. So there has been a significant flow of money outside Pakistan to Afghanistan, while we continue to import for Afghanistan as well, because Afghanistan currently doesn't really have a working central bank. So it's more of a shadow government right now, and we just understand.
So what factors do you associate with this particular smuggling of such a huge quantity of dollars there?
So yeah, once the dollar started moving out, the PKR started losing value. And if there was a more stable Afghanistan, I don't see such a thing would have happened.
Online senior economist, thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Mr. Shikoh Atif, how detrimental was this flow of dollars from Pakistan to Afghanistan, and what sort of measures do you think the government authorities need to put in place in order to curtail that?
Well, let me just congratulate the government. It has done a really great job, and even the, what we did when we were trying to get from the grey list to the white list of FATF, that international program that we did such a great job of to get off their grey list. One of the things that we did for that was to get rid of Hundi and Hawala and make sure that all our remittances come through the proper channels. Now that had a very positive impact. What has happened, according to Financial Times, what they mentioned on the Afghan border, the smuggling from Pakistan has been so significant that their currency, just on the basis of how many US dollars are being smuggled out of Pakistan, their currency is actually appreciated by 5%. That is how much our money is being smuggled out. Now, what people who are smuggling the money from Pakistan to Afghanistan are doing, they are purchasing the US dollar, regardless of what its price is, for 10% more than the actual market price. So they are buying it for 10% more. So when that kind of a thing happens for any product or service, the price of it has to go up. The value of it has to go up. So one thing that has been in consideration and is going to happen, and these people, many of them are actually buying it legally off of our commercial banks. $1,000 a day is being purchased. Just the quantity of people who are purchasing it is just tremendous. One thing that is happening now is the government is in conversation with commercial banks to put a stop to that outflow, and all on our borders as well. With the help of our institutions, we are trying to make sure that this kind of smuggling is stopped. One other thing that I would like to say, which has put a lot of negative impact on the Pakistani rupee, has been, and I don't say it with any malice or anything, is the United Arab Emirates has recently started a policy that anyone who lands in the UAE comes in with 4,000 US dollars. So now, as you know, a lot of Pakistanis even live in UAE. So every time and there are 4 flights from Pakistan to UAE every day. So now, if 4 flights full of individuals fly to the UAE with $4,000 each, that is a lot of US dollars getting out of Pakistan.
But if that is the case, that should be, of course, through the proper channels. It's very unlike to the very outflow of the dollars that is happening through the Afghan border, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. You are so right. It is all happening, it is all happening on board, and that's why the State Bank of Pakistan is actually trying to have a conversation with the UAE to exempt at least those Pakistanis who live there, so that they don't have to do it every weekend that they fly out.
Right, Mr. Shikoh, Atif, your point is well taken. We're joined by another participant, Mr. Saqib Rafiq. He's President, Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Saqib, how do you think the government authorities have handled the negotiations with the IMF for the completion of the 9th review?
Thank you very much for taking me on your program, and I must acknowledge the efforts being done by the current government in taking the steps, correct measures as per the economy of the country is concerned, the deep issues which were being faced by the business community. But I believe and we have done it into the past, and still they will take things in a better way and make Pakistan prosper once again. So coming back to the question, the measures taken by the current government, especially Mr. Saqib, who has been the expert in taking things better and taking Pakistan out of the economic worst conditions. We have seen him delivering in the past, and right now, while looking at the screen, the foreign reserves are depleting at a very fast rate. But the way government is working, the way finance ministry is working, we believe that this IMF 9th review will be completed successfully, and the other donors who are waiting in line and who are looking forward for once the IMF review will be completed, and they'll also be lending us money. So this all will be coming as a positive gesture for the Pakistan.
So, Mr. Saqib Rafiq, what sort of impact is going to have on exports? Do you think they are going to increase after the revival of this particular program?
Yes, definitely the exports has to be increased, because there is no other solution other than Pakistan to survive if we will be unable to increase our exports. we are going to be again in a very tough situation. We will be not surviving for a very long time if we will not seriously look onto the industrial package. On many platforms, I used to give my input, and wherever I speak, I am a very much advocate of insisting the government of Pakistan to announce an industrial package so that the export of Pakistan will enhance. We have to go for non-conventional measures. We have to convince government that instead of looking for the building up factories or looking for going for the land and development and going for the industrial states, we should be focusing on the measures like, for example, let me be specific on the IT sector. That if the export of the IT sectors will increase in coming years, this will take a few months. The IT sector, you don't have to build huge buildings, or you don't have to build up a few industries. You just have to maintain a software house in couple of months or like couple of couple of weeks. So the exports of Pakistan will enhance, and definitely will be like having good exports for the Pakistan.
So what
no other point of view.
What sort of measures do you specifically suggest in order to increase that output when we specifically talk about this IT sector?
Actually, the support from the government should be in construction of the IT parks. Like I know many people who are into this business outside Pakistan. So when I spoke to them, when I visited different countries, so people are interested in investing in Pakistan's IT sector. People are invested. If I actually speak out, the entire world is looking towards Pakistan because the youth bulge we have. And the freelancing capacity we have, the people are here to work in this IT sector. So all government has to do is to connect us with the correct measures taken by like building up, again I'm saying this, building up the IT parks, giving away free spaces to the companies. We have a very good IT park, Alpha Cream IT Park in Lahore. They have to replicate it into other cities. They have to make ease of doing business for the IT companies. They have to promote co-working spaces. They have to promote the sharing of the office spaces for the companies. The freelancers, they should be picked up from the universities. They should be encouraged to come up and work under a very favorable environment, so that they earn the foreign revenue. They earn the exchange, foreign reserves exchange, the dollars that Pakistan needs right now. And they have to, while speaking on this point, I must say that we have to focus on the pharmaceutical exports as well. Pakistan has a very good sorry.
Right, Mr. Saqib, beg your pardon for the interruption over here. I just want you to be shedding a little bit of more light when it's going to help in getting that very inflow of the dollars, this particular IT industry. So is it going to be helpful when we talk about broadening the tax base in Pakistan also?
Yes, broadening the taxpayer is a very important point to be looked into. We, the chambers and the business community, has always been focusing and asking the government to broaden the tax base, because instead of squeezing the existing taxpayers again and again and sending them notices and keeping them into the audits, we always encourage the government to please bring up new taxpayers into the system. Government knows the way. SBI knows the way how to add up new taxpayers. They have the data, people who are buying lands, people who are buying expensive cars, people who are buying imported cars, people who are traveling abroad. They have the data, they can involve people into the tax net. So an enhancement of tax net, making more people paying the tax and making the system broaden will ease many things for Pakistan. I just studied that by this June we have to pay 5,000 billion as an interest of the loan payments, and the total tax collection will be 7,500 billion. So we'll be paying a lot in repayment of the tax loans amount. So increasing the tax, broadening the tax net will ease the government in managing resources and helping them to run the company economically and financially in a more smoother way.
Mr. Saqib, Rafiq, please stay with us. Professor Mustafa, when we talk about, as Mr. Saqib has mentioned, that IT sector can play a pivotal role in stabilizing the overall economy of Pakistan, your take regarding?
I think that's very important. If you see the Indian case study, they have developed 5 Indira Gandhi Institute of Technology, and those are the ideal institute, and they produce excellent, the quality-wise and otherwise, and they, on the basis of that, it's well spread, and they have a very strong IT sector. As our previous, he already mentioned that we have a bulk of youth. Why not we utilize them? I like to talk another area that you are talking about the export. We have to stop over supply side also, I mean import. We are spending lots of money on import of soybean oil and other things. And being an agriculture country, we can produce those things without any spending any dollars on that. It is the incentive we have to give to the oil sector, and if we can produce that and we are importing a substantial amount of cooking oil for our home consumption, which can easily be produced in the country with minimum, there is no extraordinarily required import required for that. Even we can have a good seeds, we can multiply that, we can encourage the farmers, and that's another area where we can have. So when we are talking about the dollar saving, that's another way we have to import, we have to reduce our import also. Right. And as you have mentioned, IT sector is one of there is no high technology, the skill is there, only it's required only awareness and some type of incentive, some type of motivation, some type of we have a fast here, but why not we have a fast in almost every provinces and everywhere. So there should be a number of graduate students who can produce that. We have a very brilliant youngster. My son is also a ICT. He was just talking, Daddy, I can earn this much amount, and that's only this much dollar, only few dollars in US value, but
wonderful.
For us it's so many amount. So we can have a lot of scope for that.
Wonderful. Mr. Shikoh, Atif, your take regarding how crucial a role this IT sector can play to give a stability to Pakistan's economy?
Certainly, I mentioned the IT sector, and that's one area that I mentioned that imports were not required. Let me congratulate the Prime Minister of Pakistan, his scheme of giving laptops to the youth, and there is one scheme that he just announced today that is also geared towards the youth. To give you some idea, Pakistan was allowed by Amazon, which is one of the leading international IT e-commerce companies, 3 to 4 years ago. Pakistan is already the 3rd largest seller on Amazon. Upwork is another website that allows for people all across the world to pick up work related with IT. Pakistan is number 2 on Upwork, that website where any individual can go in and pick up the work to be done. Allow me to just go back to your original point about the IMF originally. A few other things that they have suggested with in line with what Pakistan needs to do is going to be very helpful to Pakistan. Is what they have done is negotiated an increase in the price of cigarettes. As it stands right now, cigarette prices in Australia are 28 times those in Pakistan. So a couple of, and then they've put some restrictions on sugary drinks as well. So a few things that are good for us. One really important point that you mentioned earlier was the fiscal policy and the taxation. Pakistan has 8%, only 8% of Pakistanis are paying taxes right now. This, we don't compare them with countries, with developed countries. Just in comparison with India, India has 15% of its population paying taxes. Compared with us, that's just 8%. So it is an important requirement for Pakistan to, as you put it, broaden its base. To give you one real quick thing, Pakistani agriculturalists in the past year made a profit of 900,000 Arab rupees and only paid taxes of 3 Arab rupees. So 900,000 in revenue and 3 Arabs in taxes. So there are a few things that structurally Pakistan needs to rectify with its fiscal base, and we are doing a great job on the monetary side as we speak.
Right, Mr. Shikoh, Atif, your point is well taken. Very elaborately, you've mentioned what sort of advantages Pakistan's economy is going to have after the revival of this particular program. Earlier, we saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif saying that this IMF delegation is giving very tough time to Finance Minister and his team. Now, we have seen that Human Rights Watch has urged the IMF that it should work with Pakistan's government to protect the economically disadvantaged by broadening the social protection systems and minimizing the reform measures. Could you shed a little bit of light on this particular thing? Do you think the IMF should give heed to this particular call and that very urgency, especially in the aftermath of the devastating floods?
Of course. So IMF, when they came in, they said, we will allow you a space of 450 Arab rupees that were sort of delineated towards the floods. So there is space there. But people keep saying we have had 21, 22 IMF programs. We have completed 21, 22 IMF programs. We have not. We have only completed one IMF program. And we are very fortunate to have the same individual on the top of our economy, Mr. Ishaq Dar, who completed that program in 2016. No one else in the history of Pakistan has ever completed an IMF program. So, the way I look at it is, if there is some tough medicine to be taken for us to survive as a nation, let us take it. And, I appreciate very much.
But Mr. Shikoh, Atif, how to protect the most vulnerable? As Human Rights Watch has said that IMF should provide Pakistan the time and flexibility to achieve a sustainable, inclusive and rights-based recovery. It also goes on to say that several adjustments proposed by the IMF as conditions for Pakistan to get IMF loan and address the immediate economic crisis would have both a direct and indirect negative impact on the low-income people.
Absolutely, sir. So, it is just very difficult. For example, we talk about the subsidy on petrol. It has been really tried for such a long time that, to subsidize fuel for people riding motorbikes and not allow fuel to go towards land cruisers makes perfect sense. However, it is just so difficult to implement. Although what the government is doing along with IMF is to use the Benazir income support program to differentiate between those in need versus those that can afford. The one thing that I would say is I know this is, and I'm not trying to be heartless, I really see this as medicine that we do require. And regardless of who would have been at the helm of Pakistan, this is something that was needed by Pakistan.
Mr. Saqib, Rafiq, your take regarding this and this particular call and the urgency that has been expressed by the Human Rights Watch urging the IMF and also saying that this particular reform is going to have a direct and indirect effect on the low-income people. How to protect them?
Yes, we must be looking on to the interest of the common people because while looking at the community, people are very much difficultly managing their resources, the daily day-to-day affairs, and what I can say is that for the utilities and to expense economical livelihood, it's getting very difficult for people, for the business community, or even for some of the business communities, it's getting very difficult to pay up the salaries, the rentals, or the other utility bills on the time. They must look into the things, but on the other side, the circular debt, which is very alarmingly increasing, which is a basically concern of the IMF right now, that we must look into this thing. There are certain measures which we have to take care of right now. We don't have much time left with us. We have to keep our house in order. We have to take strict measures or difficult decisions. And what I say...
what strict measures do you suggest, Mr. Saqib, to reduce that circular debt?
First of all, the government has to adopt a simplicity. And we have to keep ourselves out of the subsidies. We have to make things easy in the long run. And I must say, not to be quoting anything about political scenario, but all the political parties should sit together they have to take long-term measures, not short-term. I was once speaking on a point of that IMF loan that this 1 billion is going to be depleted in, like, let's say 1 month or 2 months, or let's say 3 months. So the strict measures, they have to be very much clear for the next 4 to 5 years plan. We can take things better in like next 2 years if the current government and all the political parties, they must end the polarization, and they must stood by the government and its decisions, and they must think that if the economy of Pakistan moves into the right direction, then every other thing will get better. But only way of putting the economy of Pakistan in the right direction is having a stability in the political scenario of the government.
So that very political consensus among all the political stakeholders. That's what you mean to say?
That is very important. Without the political stability, without the harmonization, without ending the polarization, Pakistan cannot prosper economically. We have to make everybody realize, take long-term measures, don't take short-term decisions. We, business community, are standing by the government. We are here to support the government. But on the other hand, we are looking towards the government to hear us out, to work on the solutions we are giving to them, to adopt simplicity, to cut off their expenses, to promote the industrialization of the country, to have something in our hand that if we go to the government to have things as solutions. So the government should have a will to listen to us, and the FBR should be listening to us, Ministry of Finance should be listening to us, Ministry of Commerce should be listening to us. We together can take Pakistan out of this difficult situation, provided there is a stability in the decisions. The stakeholders are not right now trusting each other. The investors are not able to plan anything. Importers are worried. The exporter is worried. The manufacturer cannot plan anything. We don't know the dollar rate for tomorrow. We don't know if raw material can get imported to the manufacturer or not. So all this instability, all this thing, the government is working very hard.
That needs to end. Your point is well taken, Mr. Saqib. Professor Mustafa, your take regarding this particular thing, how to protect the most vulnerable and the low-income people after the revival of this particular program?
Yep. First of all, I 100% agree. If you don't have a political stability, you cannot have economic stability. That is very much correlated. And if really want to, and we must have a not short term, we must have a long term, and there should be a consensus of all parties. And I think there should be someone should come forward and go ahead. What you are talking particularly about we have to reduce so many benefits the bureaucracy establishment are getting. Still they are getting, they are not paid in the, I am also in the government serving, but you see in a particular grade, political office, you have not money, but you have in the form of patrol. Liter of petrol.
You mean to say you need to cut
all those? This is an emergency in our country. We are really in a situation where we need to have some very solid and sound decisions, and that decision should be from top to bottom, not from bottom to top. Then there is another way is we, instead of have indirect taxes, we have I think maximum indirect taxes. I think the previous is saying nobody is paying tax. No, everybody is paying tax. Even very poor people.
You mentioned that only 8% of the people.
No. But those are the direct taxes. Indirect taxes, everybody. In almost everything, you have a tax. Those are the indirect tax. So everybody is paying, even the very poor.
So how to bring that one into the count?
Yeah, that's the one way. When you are talking about you have progressive type of taxation. Progressive type of taxation means the richer must pay more as compared to poor. Poor should be subsidized. The richer should be heavily taxed. And as earlier mentioned, there should be luxury items. There should not be some imported items should be banned for a certain period. You say we don't need this much car. We don't need these things. We don't need this and this and this. Even some sanctions like petrol, 250 liter petrol per month, a certain officer is getting, not the money. So they have made these type of things where they are not in worse off. They are always in better off. So we have to change, really some structural change, some fundamental change.
Some fundamental and structural changes are required in order to give the stability
Exactly.
to the economy in the country. Professor Dr. Usman Mustafa, former Joint Director, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. And on Skype, we were joined by Mr. Shikoh Atif, Senior Economist, author of Managing the Unthinkable, and had been associate of the York University of Canada as the Professor of Economics. Mr. Shikoh Atif, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. And Mr. Saqib Rafiq, President, Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Saqib Rafiq, your time was also very precious to us. We really appreciate that. And with that, we come to the end of today's Views on News. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.